The only man who can beat Alex Pereira. You're probably wondering who. Pereira is on top of the MMA world right now. He's the terrifying stone-faced killer who followed Israel Adesanya across 2 continents just to take his throne before absolutely humiliating the top dogs of the light heavyweight division. He's taken names, broken jaws, and sent legends packing. But there's a shadow from his past that could come knocking. Meet Artem Vakhitov, the last man to beat Pereira in kickboxing, and the only one who might be able to do it again in MMA. Let's rewind their time in glory. The International Kickboxing Coliseum, where fighters go to either become gods or get chewed up and spit out. Artem Vakhitov ruled the light heavyweight division like a brutal king. 6 consecutive title defenses, knocking down every challenger that dared to step into his path. Then came Pereira in January 2021, a thunderstorm of stone fist and coordinated fury, taking the belt right off Vakhitov in a stunning display. It was shocking, but Vakhitov wasn't about to let his kingdom be stolen that easily. In their rematch later that year, he came back calm and composed and dissected Pereira, reclaiming his throne. A triumphant, brutal statement he wasn't some stepping stone. That rematch loss was like a switch flipping for Pereira. He packed his bags, bid farewell to glory, and looked towards the UFC, where an old nemesis, Adesanya, was sitting pretty with a belt Pereira wanted. The rest is history. Pereira stalked Adesanya into the UFC, beat him, and crowned himself king. Granted, he took a knockout loss in the rematch, but it only seemed to make him stronger. Pereira jumped up to the light heavyweight division, where he completely wiped the floor with the top contenders. He outclassed the Polish powerhouse Blachowicz, knocked the samurai stick right off Prohaska's head, and hit Jamal Hill so hard with the left hand he can't even remember the fight correctly when he watches the highlight right in front of him. If only he could have hit him hard enough to convince him that the thumbs up tattoo on his chest are as dumb as his tweets. But throughout Pereira's reign of dominance, Vakhitov didn't disappear. While Pereira was making headlines in the UFC, Vakhitov was sharpening his skills, piling on wins until he hit an unexpected wall: politics. In a symbolic protest of Russia's war in Ukraine, Glory cut ties with all Russian fighters, kicking Vakhitov out of the organisation. No title loss, no knockouts, just gone. Now, a pack of Russian outcasts, Vakhitov among them, are wandering around the MMA scene like bloodthirsty wolves looking for a new home. So now we've got this wild scenario where Vakhitov, the last man to truly humble Pereira, has just signed to the UFC. But here's where it's getting interesting. Pereira isn't ducking him. In fact, he's convinced Dana in the UFC to bring Vakhitov in, almost like he's taunting fate. A champion who's so confident he's willing to let his old nemesis take a shot against him again. It's like Pereira wants to prove that no ghost from his past, no phantom loss can haunt him now. Pereira may be the UFC's boogeyman, but Vakhitov isn't just another contender. He's a precision fighter with the kind of calculated ferocity that can dismantle opponent piece by piece. Pereira is calculated and consistent, but he also relies on sheer power and the ability to erase memories with one punch. Vakhitov is more like a surgeon, methodical, cold, and merciless. The UFC brought Pereira in because he's a human wrecking ball who takes heads off with impunity. But if they bring in Vakhitov, we're talking about a cold-blooded technician who's already cracked the Pereira code once. And he could be itching to do it again. And let's not ignore the airy Adesanya parallel here. Just as Pereira chased Adesanya into the UFC to settle a score, Vakhitov might be ready to do the same to Pereira. Only this time, the stakes are different. Pereira walked into the UFC as a conqueror, an unstoppable force coming to take what he saw as rightfully his. Vakhitov, though, he's coming as an exile, a soldier without a home, who just might be carrying a grudge sharper than any title belt. The political fallout that forced him out of glory could be the very thing that drives him to prove he's still the best in the world, no matter where he has to go to prove it. Imagine the hype. Pereira, standing as the champion of the UFC, practically untouchable in the eyes of his fans, facing off against the one man who took him down in his prime kickboxing days. It's more than a fight, it's an unholy reckoning. Vakhitov isn't coming to play the role of friendly rival. He's here to settle a score. And if he steps into the octagon, he's not just representing himself, he's the embodiment of that ruthless Russian spirit. The relentless drive to defy anyone who would try to cast him aside. So, what happens if this showdown goes down? Will Pereira, the UFC's golden boy, prove that he's moved beyond his past and can silence every ghost that dares to confront him? Or will Vakhitov step into the octagon and do what only he's done before, dethrone Pereira, reminding him and the world that nobody's untouchable? If they cross paths, it's going to be blood, guts, and glory.